I've been a bit poorly this week. I had the fainting spell and sicky.
Sicky. When was that?
Right.
Wednesday. When?
No, Sunday, Monday.
I think it's the 15th of December.
Right.
Okay. So you were. It's been more than that. And then what happened?
And then you went off. And then you called and said, I'm going to go home and then I'd roast them.
Yeah, anyway, I have to take Mother to hospital to have straps fitted for her hip.
And then I started to make basic lunch and I fell over again a few times. So I called an ambulance. And I called Shirley. And then I went to hospital.
Oh. Ambulance men thought you were very ill, didn't they? They told me to get the children checked.
Turned out it wasn't so ill after all.
What did you have then, darling?
Flu and something that kept on making me faint.
The Prime Minister has announced the most drastic limits to our lives that the UK has ever seen in living memory. The aim, he says, is to save lives in this time of national emergency.
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
The COVID-19 pandemic trapped me in my bedroom. It made me long for the garden of my childhood, for the vegetable patch, tended to by my father, which produced a seemingly endless amount of rhubarb and kale. As news headlines on the TV constantly reminded us all of the risk of infection and death, thoughts and feelings around my own father's death were brought to the surface.
So I should probably say this. I don't know if it'll come up at any point during our chat, but my dad died last Friday.
Yeah, I called you this morning. I'm so
yeah.
sorry to hear that.
Thank you. I'm actually fine. I mean, the grief, as you would understand, is like it will hit me in a moment where I don't even know that it's coming. So like, please forgive me if something happens during this chat. He ended up getting COVID, although he did beat it. And so they were going to send him to a COVID palliative care facility, and I don't know what it would have been like, but to me, all I could picture was like the Excel Center, where it was rows of beds and people dying. It just sounded dreadful. But the truth of the matter is he ended up testing negative, being able to go to a real hospice. My mother was able to be with him. He squeezed her hand, like they made, she made a joke. He smiled, like they had that connection after 3 months, which was really important. But then he got sepsis and a brain infection. And it was just like, there was like surgery as an option. And we just thought, for what? Like, we knew what his wishes were, his quality of life. I don't know that it would have really been improved, except that we were, extending his life. Yes, very important, but for what? Like, he wasn't walking at the time. Like, he wouldn't have wanted that. He wouldn't have wanted to live that way.
Every time I look at you, every time I look at you.
When I was little, my father's pain and disability were normal. His walking stick and tremors, a source of childish embarrassment.
There's so much I want to say. Want to tell me just how good it feels when you look at me.
Darling, say hello to Daisy.
Yet watching his decline throughout my life
What, baby?
could never have prepared me for what it really feels like to never see someone again.
The office and all that.
What makes a good ending? I think getting to a point where we know we've done everything we can do. I think it's about finding a level of personal acceptance, maybe.
My idea of a good death would be the knowledge and the knowing that it's my time.
I think when I think of a good death, I think of time. I think of having enough time to connect with loved ones, friends, family, having that chance to have those conversations.
Since I last, spoke to you, my father-in-law or ex-father-in-law has passed, so I was with him for that passing, and so that's, and that was as good a death as you could have, in the sense that it was peaceful, in the sense that it was with people he loved around, and it was free of pain.
If everyone who's dying could go to a hospice, then that would be ideal, but people can't. Yes, we do have carers who can care in the home, but they're not always around, so it is left to family a lot of the time. But more and more, my experience in hospital had always been, particularly busy hospitals, where there had been a death, there was always a phone call saying, when are you going to move the body out, because we need the bed, we've got 20 people waiting in A&E. And it was just a horrible feeling. You're not even given a lot of time to be able to go in and just sit with somebody and be there as a person, as opposed to a healthcare professional who's got a job to do and is a tick, 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 and I've got to get this done, so I'm only here for 15 minutes.
Art and wisdom turn to science and skill. Compassion to computation, experience to instrumentation.
Doctors generally have been taught that they're almost there to cure, and we have all these things available, so you will not die because I will do this test and I will give you that treatment and we'll take out that organ and we can regrow that in a lab and shove it back to you, and fantastic, that we can do all of that. But then to actually then say, actually I failed, because that's what it is, it's a failure on their part. And I've said it to them so many times myself, Dr. so-and-so, they're dying, they, even if you give them another treatment, it's going to buy them another month of life. Far better, really, to let them go in the next 3 weeks, where you're not hauling them into hospital every day. You just have to be honest.
End-of-life doulas are committed to making deaths as good as possible. There are no reruns, no dress rehearsals.
Okay, and then...
As lockdown forced us all to adapt to new restrictions, the doulas taught me to re-look at my experience and see that we did the best we could under the circumstances.
It would be, not very wise to get blinkered into thinking it's just about putting some more morphine into the syringe driver. It's about looking at, what is that pain? Is it emotional? Is it spiritual? How can we treat this whole person? And the role of the doula is absolutely that.
We do have obviously that time, and we will work with professionals, but they can come in and do their bit and leave, and we can just sit there, and someone can say to us, well, do you know what, I just realised what that Macmillan nurse has said to me. Did she really think I'm dying now? And then you're there to pick that up, and it's not just left with the family.
It's about human connection, and it's just been such a sad time, the most horrendous time for anybody dying, I think, in the COVID situation. And I think we're going to face, a real legacy of that. I think there's going to be a legacy of complicated grief from people who haven't been able to be with their loved ones, and for people who've survived COVID but have had that, sort of faceless care through masks and that. I think there's going to be elements of PTSD. I think there's going to be huge aftermath.
And if you're sad, you can't, you want someone to hold you. That's normal, isn't it? So be reassured, and that's not been happening. There will be a lot of, I think what we will see, and certainly our doula group were talking about this today, we will probably see a lot more complicated grief as time goes forward. In nursing, I cared very, very scientifically, and certainly we knew about touch and we knew about non-verbal communication, but this side of it wasn't quite, we hadn't got time to look down that hole, really. We just had to kind of do things practically?
I think the natural instinct these days is to try to extend one's life in whatever way that is. So if someone's suffering, it's like, okay, well, let's get him to the hospital, and how do we fix this and keep him alive? And at what point is that no longer the right thing to do for that individual?
Today, instruments and hands and training and research, lacking perhaps in bedside manner, can act and save.
Medical intervention kind of came into play. So once we had a better medical system, and people were trying to prolong their life as much as possible because they were able to, because medical advances, I guess we started turning our attention to that. And so when we were declining in health, we would simply go to the hospital and try to prolong our life in any way we could, which is wonderful because it's meant that our life expectancy has gone up and, you know, we get more time with loved ones. But what that's meant is death and dying and things that were very natural at one point, potentially before like the 50s, when medical advances really started coming into play. All of that whole process was done in the home. I think it's just a shift that we've forgotten how to do the things that come naturally and come innately to us.
As my father's multiple sclerosis worsened, and my mother increasingly became his carer, at some point during my childhood, I must have learnt that things in his life were not going to plan. For me at least, his was a good death. We were all at home, by his bedside, together, one last time.
So, George is 84. He has vascular dementia and neurological problems, which mean all movement is extremely limited and very painful for him. He also has advanced prostate cancer. He was an incredibly strong, successful, proud, very self-confident and self-sufficient man. Grace is 19 years younger, so at 65, she is George's carer in every sense of the word. Watching her is love in action. Cleaning up after him if he's had an accident, taking him to the toilet, bathing him, taking out his false teeth, shaving him, cutting his hair. And these tasks are carried out with total dignity. George is never rushed, he is never chastised, and he is never shamed. I believe through Grace's consistent, unconditional love, George has no fear about what lies ahead. It feels to me that George is heading towards what we in our society would term a good death.
I urge you, at this moment of national emergency, to stay at home, protect our NHS, and save lives.
I had to do a special training on how to do telephone support, because a lot of what we do as a bereavement support or in any kind of support, in end-of-life support, is visual cues and watching how people are and sitting in silence, which is really powerful, and allowing emotions to come and thoughts to come. That can't happen. And so when you're on the phone with somebody and you can hear that they're distressed, you have to sort of say, I'm still here, I can hear you.
How was it attending the virtual funeral?
Very lovely. It was, you know, you kind of feel a bit voyeuristic, but the content was lovely, and and they were able to switch screens and show a picture of Kim, and then the songs were played through the screen. That was lovely. So it was I did feel part of it. It was different, and I missed not being able to hug everyone and have a big bun fight, which we'd like to do, but I think it was as good as it could have been, you know, in the circumstances.
Because of COVID, I'm not with my family. They're in Florida. And it means that and so my dad's Indian and most of his family's in India, Canada, and different places around the world. And we're also far apart. And it means that what we've done, or what I did yesterday was I just sent out a note to everybody I knew, and I said, listen, we're all far apart. I encourage you to, like, in any way you feel comfortable, whether it be in nature or at home or at the Gurdwara, because he's Sikh. I was like, you know, take a moment, reflect. And so people have been doing that today, and they've been sending me photos of where they are. And it's just the most beautiful thing. So, you know, despite all of it, it's like you can still find beautiful moments.
We Skype or, you know, WhatsApp them all the time. We're on the phone every day. So my phone bill and their phone bill must be skyrocketing. Because, you know, sometimes we think we're going to use this kind of forum, and my mum is 86, so the mere fact that she has even got a laptop and an iPad is magnificent. But sometimes, you know, she's always saying to my daughter, it just doesn't work anymore, I need a new one. And my daughter said, I think you just need to plug it in and charge the battery. And I just feel so sad that what could be the last year, maybe even 18 months of their life, if they're lucky, is basically going to be spent in semi-isolation.
So, Dad, bless your beautiful face. I love it, and I love your smile, because it's my smile too, and it's my constant companion, that I look just like you. Everyone said, oh, you're just like your dad. Bless your kind and loving heart. It's been so joyfully expanding all these years and being kind to everyone that you knew, as a social worker, as a policeman, as a RSPCA inspector. And when you left social work, you were a window cleaner and a security guard, and then your best job was looking after my kids while I went back to work. That's a wonderful gift that you gave me and them, to be able to spend that time with you. Bless your wonderful voice, and the singing and the songs that we did when we were kids in the car, and all that wonderful gift that you gave us. We still sing today, and you still sing today, and it makes us all laugh when we can hear you singing outside in your room. Your voice when you were town crying, and you were a town crier, and how proud you were to be a town crier and get in town marching in front of the carnival and on Remembrance Day. It was a wonderful thing. In the panto, on stage, making everyone laugh. Humour has been such a wonderful gift that you've given us, and I'm so grateful that you gave that to us. These kind hands, working hard all your life, and the food, bless your belly, and the food that you made for us, because you were a better cook than Mum. I remember you did that man in the kitchen course and brought home, I still remember it, a gammon cooked in cider, and it was wonderful. Booze, something that has been a nemesis to you all your life, I think. But don't regret that. Don't feel bad about that, because you weren't a hard drinking man. You were a soppy, loving drinker, and we weren't harmed. And I still love you for it.
Life is full of ups and downs, littered with pandemics and technological barriers. I don't have a lifetime with my father to reflect on. My time with him is compressed into 19 short years. But that doesn't mean my relationship with him is over. He lives on, captured in videos and sustained in memories.
The dying phase is pretty much the same in everyone. Once people stop being interested in food or drink and spending more time sleeping than they are awake, then really you're into that trajectory downhill. And that is the same for everyone, and their breathing changes, and the blood recedes, and you see a blue tinge to their extremities.
They sleep more, and so they'll be less sort of awake and engaged.
Death is natural, and a natural progression of this sleep.
And at that point, they might be less interested in food.
So you will notice that there's a change in patients or people's weight.
The body will be passing urine and stools until the person dies. It's important to keep them moving and adjust them as necessary so that they don't build up any sores.
They will become more forgetful and may even be confused, and nearer to death, confusion may be a symptom as anxiety manifests.
You might notice a change in breathing as well. It sounds scarier than it actually is, the Cheney-Stokes breathing. It just means that their fluid is getting caught in the back of their throat.
Breath becomes shallower, the skin pale and colder, the muscles weaker, and hence the facial muscles relax, and the contours of the face change. The body is more still.
The last sort of sense to go is hearing. People may be sleeping more and more towards, as they near death, but they can certainly hear you. Even if it's being in someone's physical space and just continuing to comfort them with your words. I think that's extremely important.
Sometimes a noise can be heard at the back of the dying person's throat that they are unaware of. But the rate of breathing changes with longer periods between intake and outtake of breath until the last breath.
The heart stops beating, breathing stops, the body colour becomes pale. The body cools, muscles relax, urine and stools may release. The eyes may remain open. The trickling of internal fluids may be heard. There can be a sense that they are just not home anymore. May there be love in your north and love in your south. May there be love in your east and love in your west. May there be love without and love within, as your journey of love begins.